legal nurse consultant, owner of Wade Nurse Consultants, and creator of our private LinkedIn community, the Attorney Medical Record Resource Group. That is where we get all of our stellar attorney guests. The goal of our show is to be a resource for legal professionals who pursue medical cases by sharing their experience and insights as defense or as plaintiff attorneys. You can catch prior episodes at www.wadenurseconsultants.com/blog, on LinkedIn and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Now here's the host of Should You Take That Case, Lisa Wade.
Wonderful. Happy Monday, everyone. Happy Medical Record Monday. And it's me, your host, Lisa Wade, friendly neighborhood legal nurse consultant, owner of Wade Nurse Consultants. Think of us when you have those tons of medical records you need translated into normal human language, easily understood by judges and juries. And I am also the creator of the Attorney Medical Record Resource Group. That's where we get all of our wonderful attorney guests that we interview, because we use this as an opportunity to get to know one another. And we're going to do that today with our guest, Jesse Capell, and we'll bring him out in just a few more minutes. But first, we want to travel over to the comment section and see who's visiting us live today. If you are a part of Women-Owned Law, put a W into that chat. Women-Owned Law is a wonderful, groundbreaking group created to connect and advance women legal entrepreneurs. And I've been elected elected to the board of directors for Women-Owned Law just recently. So hooray for me and hooray for Women-Owned Law. I think it's going to be fun and exciting. So visit us at womenownedlaw.org if you want to know more about us. Also, if you are an attorney, put an A into that chat. Put a P if you're a paralegal, just so we can see you and say hello. We want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy days to be with us. And now it is time to introduce our guest. Jesse Capell is an experienced trial litigator with a wealth of experience handling nursing home and neglect, medical malpractice, personal injury, and commercial litigation cases. Before founding his own law firm on behalf of plaintiffs, Jesse was a partner at a large law firm where he primarily defended hospitals and physicians against medical malpractice lawsuits. Jesse began his career in public service, working for the New York City Law Department, where he handled a variety of civil matters, sharpening his impressive courtroom skills. And before founding his own law firm, I'm so sorry. I did say that, but now we're going to say welcome. We're bringing you out, Jesse. Hi there.
Hi. You can read the bio again in case.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. It's
thank heavens.
Yeah. No, I think they got it.
That's my kryptonite. So sometimes, so please forgive me for any floundering on your.
No, it sounded really impressive when you were saying it, so I didn't mind hearing it.
Well, you are impressive. So let me just say this, Jesse, we're glad to have you here today. Glad you took time to be with us. And how's the weather in New York?
The weather, it's beautiful today.
All right.
Yeah, just couldn't ask for a better fall, sunny, crisp day.
Crisp. I like that word, crisp. All right, crisp it is. All right. Well, Jesse, we're going to talk to you about and get all the juicy details about medical records and how you deal with them in your practice. But first, we want to hear all about you. What what led you to become an attorney? What led you to go to this this branch in law, and what do you love about it? Tell us all the details.
I don't know if I ever consciously decided to become an attorney. I come from a family of attorneys. My grandfather came to this country from Russia when he was a kid, and put himself through college and law school. And he went to New York Law School, and he graduated, I think, in the 30s or something like that. And so he was an attorney. My father's an attorney. I have 3 uncles that are attorneys. And when I was a kid, I used to go with my dad to night court and watch him. And so I think that had a huge effect on me. And I don't know that I ever really considered anything else.
Oh, it sounds like a family legacy.
Yeah. But I also was drawn to it. I think that there was something about watching the people in my family practice that just attracted me, and I just, I thought that was what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it sounds like it's in your blood, Jesse.
Yeah. Yes. And then this area specifically, I had an uncle who was an attorney at White's in Luxembourg, and which is a big plaintiff's personal injury law firm in New York City, and they have offices all over the country. And he represented plaintiffs who had been exposed to asbestos and had developed mesothelioma. And he was also a trial lawyer. And one summer when I was in college, I interned for him while he was in the middle of this big asbestos exposure trial. And that was just a definitive experience for me. He represented numerous plaintiffs. Many of them were sick. Some of them were dying. And he just managed to, the only thing I thought he was sort of this superhuman personality. He was taking on all of these different defense attorneys and was just running circles around them. He was charming, entertaining the judge, and he was inspiring his clients. His clients really admired him, and he won the trial. At the end, he had a big verdict, and it was just a wonderful experience for me, and great to be a part of it. And ever since then, and that trial was in New York Supreme Court and New York State Supreme Court in Manhattan, and I decided that I wanted to move to Manhattan and sort of follow in his footsteps. And so I worked for the city. I got a lot of trial experience working for the city of New York as an attorney after I graduated from law school. And then I was able to get an interview with a firm that defended hospitals and doctors in medical malpractice cases. So I did that really from 2009 up until last year. And now I'm a plaintiff's attorney. So I'm looking at this practice area with somewhat of a fresh perspective, because although I'm very familiar with the subject matter, I was on the other side of the case, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Well, it looks like you've had wonderful mentors and examples growing up to be a justice warrior, and being on both sides of the table. That sounds like good experience.
I think so, and I think particularly for the issue that you're focusing on about taking cases and how to evaluate cases. I think that has come very easy to me, because when you are thinking about what types of case you want to take, you need to figure out whether the case is viable and whether it's going to withstand motions for summary judgment or motions to dismiss by defense attorneys. And so I think I have an advantage having made many of those motions and figuring out early on how I'm going to attack a case. So that's been helpful.
Yeah, I have to imagine it definitely is. So, and you mentioned about deciding to take cases. How do you decide? Do you have a procedure or process that you go through to decide if a case is viable or not viable, or if it should be referred out? What's your process for deciding that?
Well, it depends on the type of case. Most of the cases that I have in my current case portfolio are nursing home neglect and abuse cases, about half of my cases. And I did briefly work at the law firm Morgan & Morgan, and I had a good experience there. That was my first stint in plaintiff's personal injury, and ended up starting my own firm really about 2 weeks ago, or last week. It was really my first full week.
Oh,
so I'm
congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And so now that I'm funding the cases as well, I have to be particularly careful about what types of cases that I take. So for the nursing home neglect cases, there are four standard, I would say, or conventional nursing home neglect and abuse cases that I'll look for, which are bed sore cases, decubitus ulcer cases, falls, and you and I spoke briefly about that before, falls that result in fracture the hip or skull fracture, choking cases, and some type of assault, whether it's sexual assault or physical assault cases. I have a few of those. And I guess there are five. There are elopement cases also, which I have one recently that involves elopement as a component of the case. So I guess there are five categories of nursing home neglect cases. And then within the pressure ulcer cases, I think, I'm not sure how many people who are viewing are familiar with pressure ulcer cases, but those are cases where the nursing home resident developed a bed sore from the lack of turning in positioning by the staff in the nursing home. The bony prominences can when they're impacting the skin from continuous pressure, they can cause deterioration and degeneration of the skin. So, at any rate, there are four stages of pressure ulcers, and I at this point, or I'm sorry, I guess there are six, right? Because they're stage 1 through 4. Then there's the deep tissue injury and unstageable pressure ulcers. So
you're good. You're well versed.
Oh, thanks. So I'm looking for stage 3 or 4 or unstageable pressure ulcers. Unstageable pressure ulcers are where there's necrotic skin, or eschar is covering the wound, so you can't tell how deep it is. And the reason that I'll take those 3 categories of injuries are because those are the most severe. And in terms of when you're weighing the economics of taking the case, unfortunately, I can't help everyone. Those are the cases that I think are the most meritorious and worthy being prosecuted. For the fall cases, like I said, I wouldn't, if it's just a soft tissue injury or something like that, I typically wouldn't take it. But if the fall resulted in a hip fracture, skull fracture, I have a case where the fall resulted in shoulder fracture, I would take those cases. And those cases are I would be more likely to file those cases if the nursing home resident, had a history of falls, or if there was an indication in the records that there was some other indication that the resident was likely to fall. Either on they could be on various medications, or just that they're have an unsteady gait. So those are things I look for. The patient-on-patient assault cases, I have a few of those now. I have one case that was a homicide. That was that case has actually been in the press, and it happened in May of 2021 in a nursing home in the Bronx in the dementia unit. And what's sort of unique about that case is that the Department of Health investigated the incident specifically and wrote a report where they found that the nursing home did not have the adequate staffing to protect the residents, and that they did not modify the care plan of the resident who was killed. And there was an administrative proceeding that this is all public information, and there was an administrative proceeding, and the nursing home actually ended up settling that administrative proceeding. So that case is pending. And obviously the advantage of that case is that there was already been investigative work done by the Department of Health. But in general, those cases can be tricky, the patient-on-patient assault cases, or even the sexual assault cases, because the plaintiff has to prove that the nursing home was on notice that there was a risk that one of the other patients could assault the other patient, or that the patient who was injured, this is more in the physical assault cases, if the patient who was injured was at risk of harming himself. And that can be difficult, because in order to prove that, in many instances, I have to get the medical records of the assaulting patient, or the patient who initiated the assault. And for anyone that's practiced in this area, it can be very difficult. There are HIPAA regulations that make it very difficult for me to obtain the medical records of a third party. So, but I do have a couple of those cases where, and I've spoken with experts that have advised me, when you have a very serious assault that may look like it arose in just one particular instance, the fact is that someone who has the capacity to really injure somebody in a nursing home, that there's a high likelihood that they've done it before. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. There typically are warning signs. So there are ways for me to get the medical records of the third party, or the aggressor. And that usually involves filing the case first, and proceeding with discovery and making some type of a motion to the court to show why it's necessary in this case to get the medical records of the third party.
Well, it sounds like you take everything case by case. You don't make a blanket judgment or about what you're going to take or not. You dig right in and get all the details before you decide.
No, it's for me, it's a torturous process, and the most difficult part of being a plaintiff's attorney I found is telling people that I can't take the case, and that even though I don't think. I'm not disputing that there was neglect, but I can't prove it based on what I've seen, and those conversations are horrible. I've received some nasty emails from people, and I'm not I'm a lawyer, so I'm used to the slings,
that kind of talk.
Yeah. So that can be challenging, but I think that I'm convinced that it's much better for me to decide early on that I don't want to take the case, rather than take the case because I'm too scared to tell the people that I can't win the case. And then you get into the litigation and it's 3 years, and the other side, you get the defense attorneys are making motions to dismiss, and it's better to just make that decision, I think, as soon as possible and deal with those difficult conversations.
All right. Well, it sounds like you don't make your decision until you have a thorough review.
That's correct.
All right. Well, you know what? Guess what? We have a question.
Ooh.
And we usually wait till the end to have a Q&A. But since this is Stephen Haber, attorney Stephen Haber, I'm going to toss his question out there. Can you see it?
Do I catch grief from defense counsel now that I'm a plaintiff? Nothing that I can't handle. I would say more friendly ribbing from the defense attorneys that I've come across, that I dealt with in my prior work experience as a defense attorney. I have a very good friend who is now, and our clients are adversaries. I don't like to say the attorneys and I are adversaries, but our clients have an adversarial relationship. And so he sometimes busts my chops. But no, actually, I think I found it to be, if anything, somewhat of an advantage, because I can put myself in the shoes of the defense attorneys, and I've been in their world. I understand the pressures that they face, representing large hospitals, particularly, or nursing homes. There's a lot of administrative work that you have to do, and sometimes some second guessing. So I think I can commiserate with them over the challenges of their job, and it's possible that earns me something. But as I'm only in my second week as a solo practitioner, we'll see how far it gets me.
Okay. All right. Well, Stephen had one more comment.
That is absolutely the case, and especially now, because it's much more difficult for defense attorneys to bill, because there aren't as many, at least in New York, there aren't as many in-person court appearances. And so the days of easy billing, I would say, are over.
Well, for podcast listeners, I just have to tell them Stephen's comment. I guess they are happy to have the case to defend. They need work too.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Thank you for that question, Stephen.
Stephen is a very good source of help for my podcast. So he's been a guest before. So okay. Thank you, Stephen. All right. And so when all of those records start rolling in, is there a particular process you have or protocol you have for diving into them? Do you have a paralegal that does that kind of thing?
I haven't yet relied on a paralegal or an assistant to review the records. I'd like to at some point do that, or at least have an associate to help me with that. But I don't know that I have one specific method of doing it. It sounds very the only word I can think of is nerdy, but I get so excited when I get the medical records. I feel because
that's not nerdy at all.
I don't know. For whatever, only because it's if this whole thing is a puzzle, which I think it is. If proving the case is really a puzzle, and the medical records are the biggest piece of that puzzle, because the only thing I've had up until that usually is just what my client has told me about what's happened, and as I'm sure you've seen many times, the discrepancy between what my clients have told me about what happened and what the medical records. Not to say that one side is right or wrong, because the medical records can be wrong too sometimes, but there can be a big gap. So at any rate, I see the medical records as the greatest opportunity for me to prove my case.
All right. Yes, it contains all the juicy details.
All the juicy details. So what I've been doing now, because I have small kids, and so I can't always, and I do it a lot sometimes in the car. I transfer the records to a PDF file, and sometimes I'll read the records in the car, not while I'm driving.
Well, thank goodness.
Yes. Yeah. Or even on the subway, and I'll just take notes in my phone and kind of create my own outline in my phone. Sometimes I do it at night. I think that the record, I need time. I need to be in a place where I can really concentrate. And I even though I need to, there's certain times in the day now, at least that I'm getting a little bit older, and that I just where I reach a certain hour of the afternoon where I just realize I'm just kind of shot, and that I can only do certain specific tasks. I can talk on the phone, I can do podcasts, but I can't just really focus. So more than a specific method of doing it, I would say is just finding time where my brain is fresh and I'm able to jot down notes in some coherent fashion and figure out what usually I know what I'm looking for. So, for bed sore cases, I think, I'm looking for most importantly, whether there was a pressure ulcer present on admission to the nursing home. And just, I'll go through the record and figure out where the different pieces of information are, the surgical records, the labs, orders. So I'll just get generally familiar with it once before I go in for the deeper dive.
All right, that sounds like a process, and working when you have the most brain energy. It's something I do also. I think that's important. Excellent. So once you do, start diving into those records, is there anything that you find that is a pet peeve, about those records or going through them, something that's very annoying or puzzling when you're dealing with them?
Well, other than the fight sometimes that there is just to get them in the first place, there's also the problem of when the records are missing. And that to me is the most deflating experience, when I've done everything I can. I've called whoever I can call in the nursing home or the hospital to get the records, and my assistant's helping me with that. We finally get the records and they're not complete. And then that to me is, because then I just think, oh my God, I got to go through this again to get the records. So that's one issue.
Yeah, that's like when you're sitting down to read the paper, if the people are reading the paper now. Anyway, if they sit down to read the paper and they're like 3 sections missing. So I can see how that could be frustrating.
Sure. The only other thing that frustrates me about the medical records is with the advent of the EMR, there's just a lot of repetitive information. And I can only attribute that to my fellow attorneys that have made it more necessary to document tediously. So
I gotcha. Yeah, those EMRs, it's just a lot of extraneous information
and redundancy.
Yeah, it's hard to pick out all the good juicy nuggets out of all of that minutia. I understand. Well, you have given us wonderfully good information and wonderful details about your experiences. Is there anything you've missed that you want to share with newbie or veteran attorneys out there when they're deciding to take these types of cases? And what else do you have to share?
Well, we were talking earlier before we went live, and you mentioned something about the bed alarms. And I was curious if you could share what you know about those bed alarms, because there are, and not necessarily into the tech, on whatever level you feel comfortable commenting in terms of not, you need to get into the electronics of the alarms, but just generally how they work, because there are cases where there may not have been a prior fall, but the nursing home was concerned that the resident was not being careful about getting up, so they'll put those bed alarms on. I was just curious if you can tell anything you can say about the alarms would be helpful to me.
Well, only thing that I can say about alarms is they're much like, like any other alarm, car alarms, house alarms. They don't necessarily prevent something from happening, but it is to alert you, ahead of time. So that it puts you on notice or put you on warning. So that's how I consider bed alarms. Not necessarily that. They can alert you to something that's happening, and those people that are identified as risk or at risk, I think that's a big important part. What kind of assessment did they have, and what that assessment showed, and how that alarm was the answer to to those deficits.
Right.
So that alarms, they, like I said, they work just like car alarms. Doesn't keep anybody from snatching and grabbing your car, but it does let you know something's happening.
Sure.
So that's all I got to say about
that's
alarms in general.
Right.
Yeah, but it's as it's once you get those records and you start diving in, that's where all the details are.
Sure.
So yeah, and I can't make a decision about it until I get all of the details. So that's it. I only have something general to say about alarms.
Right. The only thing that I would say, just generally, because we're talking about my experience as an attorney, is that I love it just as much, or if not more now, because I have some experience, got some gray in my beard, or I had a beard until recently, and I feel like I can accomplish more now, and especially now that I have my own firm, I can help a lot of people, and I have the tools to do it. So I'm extremely excited about the future. And I would say to young lawyers, I struggled in the beginning. There are things about the practice of law that really bother me. And it's hard for young attorneys. You can end up doing a lot of the menial work and work that you certainly didn't go to law school to do. And that can be dispiriting for a lot of people. But if you can just bear with it and endure the pain, I think it to me, I couldn't imagine doing anything else. And I feel, like I said, very excited about the future. And thank you so much, Lisa, for having me on. And
definitely my pleasure. I'm so glad to have you here. But we do have an official time left for a little Q&A.
Sure.
So and before we get that, we have to go and do what I call a teeny tiny commercial break. Are you ready to answer any more questions?
Yeah.
All right then. So what we are going to do is let everybody know it's time to ask your questions, get them ready, put them inside the chat. And while you're doing that, let me just tell you a little bit about Wade Nurse Consultants and what we do here. Now, without a review and summary of the medical records, it might be harder for you, personal injury or medical malpractice attorneys, to know if you should take that case. And here at Wade Nurse Consultants, we give attorneys a 1 to 2 page synopsis and opinion regarding the merits of those medically related cases, using my 30 plus years of nursing experience to make quick work of those medical case screenings. So if you're watching this and you are ready to attack any backlog of medical case screenings that you have, or if you need to get clarity on medical issues so you can free yourself to focus on your legal strategies, here's what you do. Right now, we're offering a free 20-minute medical record strategy call to help you hone an efficient, timely, and cost-effective routine around your medical cases. And you'll find inside the description box of this YouTube channel a link to schedule that call and consultation. And now let's get back to Jesse and the Q&A. So we do have, Stephen, you are really into it today. So let me put Stephen's question, which I think might be more for me, but let's see. Will the bed alarms create a log of triggering so that you can prove that staff overlooked a bed alarm? Stephen, I'm going to tell you, I don't have that information. I don't know what kind of metadata is created by the alarms that are triggered or not triggered. But guess what? If you have a case like that, I can find out. And, maybe I will find out the answer to that question and just email you with what I know. How's that sound, Stephen? All right. Do you have an answer to that question? Have you seen data that's...
I've never seen a log of that, but you point out that there might be metadata.
Yeah, I am not certain if that's recorded and how that's recorded. So, but I can find out for you. If I don't know, I know someone who does.
I mean, my assumption would be that if an alarm goes off, and it's detected, that the nursing staff, that would be an event that would be worthy of documentation. That should be.
Well, let's see, because I want to check and see if there is there any metadata created, because the alarm can go off a lot of times in a shift. So
okay.
I would certainly like to know if we can find that inside of that EMR, but let's find out. And I'll let you know, Stephen. I'll send you an email too, Jesse.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think we're not having any other questions. All right. You're welcome, Stephen. All right. So I think we're winding down for right now, but I have one more question for you, Jesse. Will you come back again?
Absolutely.
All right. Excellent. Well, I'll be inviting you again.
Thank you.
So as we wind down, let me just remind folks that to like this YouTube channel, to subscribe. If you have any legal nurse consulting questions, you can reach out to me, Lisa at WadeNurseConsultants.com. Any questions for Jesse, I'm going to have his contact information inside the description box of this YouTube channel. You can reach out to him at any time. I'm sure he's going to answer all of your wonderful questions. Am I right, Jesse?
Absolutely. Again.
All right.
You bet.
All right. Excellent. Well, thank you for coming. And everybody, watch us again next week. We'll be here Monday, 5:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a brand new episode of Should You Take That Case? We'll see you then.
Thanks for watching and listening to another episode of Should You Take That Case with your host, Lisa Wade, your friendly neighborhood legal nurse consultant, owner of Wade Nurse Consultants, and creator of our private LinkedIn community, the Attorney Medical Record Resource Group. That is where we get all of our stellar attorney guests. The goal of our show is to be a resource for legal professionals who pursue medical cases by sharing their experiences and insights as defense or as plaintiff attorneys. You can catch prior episodes at www.wadenurseconsultants.com/blog, on LinkedIn, and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel and sharing this show with others.